everyone, and welcome back to the Arsenal Fan Theory podcast. Tonight we've got a Man City Arsenal preview in store for you guys, along with Dean. Dean, how you doing?
Hey, Brendan, good thanks to you, man. Excited to be back.
It's good, it's good. And Michael's also here to join us today.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so I think our first episode was quite long, so let's get started. Dean, I want to jump straight to you. How do you think, the Arteta Pep Guardiola situation is going to impact the game, and especially Arteta's preparations for as big a game as the City game?
Yeah, no, Brendan, as you've seen, every news outlet or news agency is speaking exactly that, the apprentice versus, the master. And that is what Pep Guardiola is, and it's exactly what that's going to be. It's going to be a tactical battle. I think they're going to definitely will try to outsmart each other using different tactics they wouldn't before because of their familiarity with each other. They're not, if they stick with what they normally do and the other one has something up their sleeve, you have no chance in a sense of keeping up with that. So I think they're both going to have something up their sleeve, something different tactically. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting seeing Arteta going up against, Pep.
Yeah, what I've also noticed, I don't know if you've watched, both managers had their pre-game presses already. We're recording, it's currently Tuesday night, and the game's tomorrow night for those of you that are listening. It was quite interesting. Both managers, pointed out that they know exactly the style of play that the other manager has because they've worked so closely under each other. And what was interesting, Mike, I think that Arteta wasn't very keen to give anything away, especially with players available for this game, because we haven't seen players like Xhaka and Torreira feature in the friendlies, but he didn't rule them out for this game.
Yeah, well, Arteta was very vague around the subject about how we might play or who might play. So I think he's trying to keep everything for himself, not to give anything away, not to give Guardiola idea about anything that he's planning for the game. Yeah, and I also expect Guardiola to bring something different that he normally would, because, like you said, he straight came out and said that Arteta knows Man City inside and out. He knows all the game plans. He knows all the players because they work so closely together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. I'm definitely looking forward to see what Guardiola is going to bring out tactically. Dean, do you think you've got any insights, or could you give us your best guess on what type of formation we might see from Guardiola, what type of tweak he might do to try and throw Arteta off his trail?
Yeah, I can only give my insight, of course, Brendan, but I think that's the difficult, for Arteta's side, tactically, he can play so much more with the team. Whereas, in what I mean is, City's team chooses itself almost every day. There's not too many changes. Yeah, I agree with you defensively. If this one's fit, that one, and what's your midfield. But at the end of the, sorry, what's your wing pairing? But at the end of the day, his team pretty much chooses itself. So it'll be interesting to see. But at the end of the day, City have the quality. So, maybe in a sense of a formation setup, he'll go with pretty much what he normally goes with, which is, his 4-5-1, with the holding midfielder, of course, a lot more attacking wingers. But, there's other ways you can change the game tactically or even technically differently. In technique wise, I talk about, shouldering players down certain ways. You know, maybe he looks to press us in areas where he's pointed out weaknesses in our team. Maybe he presses us into those areas and picks the ball off us, and then has worked a way to counterattack from that. So, to me, his formation is going to be this. It, I see that formation staying pretty much the same, but tactically and technique wise, inside the game, team tactics or individual tactics and techniques, that he will definitely do something differently. But what that is like I say, he's maybe found a weakness of ours where he's going to press us, and then has figured a way to counterattack us on that.
Well, it's interesting you talk about the in-game tactics because I remember the December game we lost 2-0, I believe. There were big talks regarding Arteta's influence on the tactical formation and the tactics within the game, that he had, because he told the players in game where Arsenal weaknesses are and where to attack Arsenal, and in the end it worked where they used like Sterling and was Sane still available then? I can't remember to
I'm not too sure,
to overflow our
but
midfield.
yeah, I
Where
think Sonny was out quite early in the season. But no, look, I agree with you, and that's this way it's going to work for us this time. Like Michael mentioned earlier, and like you're mentioning now, he knows City in and out. And back then, in that defeat against City earlier in the season, the 2-0 defeat, like you said, everybody praised Arteta for it because he knew Arsenal in and out and ways to work it. So now he knows City in and out, but the quality on show at City. Not saying that we don't have the quality, we do have the quality, but it's going to take something different tactically, and spiritually. It's going to have to be a big performance from
yes.
Arsenal to get anything out of this.
No, look, I agree. I just all I want to see is a team fighting for the badge. Even if we lose, as long as we put in a performance, I think all supporters would be happy, no matter what the result. Obviously, not a thrashing, but just a competitive game. Mike, um, where do you think Arteta might look to win the midfield battle? Because, like we just mentioned, he pointed out as that was one of Arsenal's key weaknesses when he played against us. Maybe which player do you think he'd task to cover someone like a De Bruyne on the day?
Well, Bren, I think every Arsenal fan could be honest with themselves here that City definitely have a much more dominant midfield over Arsenal. So I don't think it will come down to the quality of the players. I think, like you just mentioned, he will task certain players to try and stop the quick transition into counter attack and to stop certain players, especially De Bruyne. I'm hoping we see Lucas Torreira because that is something that is exceptional at. He's good at sniffing out a tackle and just always being at the right position at the right time. So I think Arteta might look to play two defensive midfielders and just try and stop that counter attack that City do so well.
I also believe he'll have two defensive-minded midfielders, so I'm leaning a bit towards he's probably going to go if fit Xhaka and maybe a Guendouzi midfield, just based on the friendlies. Guendouzi's been quite involved in the preseason. Or I keep on saying preseason friendlies because it feels so, it feels like a preseason. But yeah, he used Guendouzi quite a bit in the friendlies in this build-up. So, Dean, I don't know. What do you think the midfield options are, and what do you think Arteta might? I know we talked about this in our previous episode, but what do you think Arteta's going to settle on?
Like you said, we've had a debate or two about this before. Um, it's difficult, if these oaks are not fit, not raring to go, it's difficult to see them getting in. But I agree with Michael on that you need somebody to combat De Bruyne. It's difficult at the end of the day because you can see where you try to pick out or you try to man mark certain players and you leave others open, or you leave spaces on the field open. But now I'm going a bit off topic, but yeah, our midfield pairing, I I would love to see a Shaka and Torreira. That I think is our strongest pairing, especially against an attacking minded team. But yeah, leading up to like you're saying these preseason games, or I don't know what we call them because it feels like that. these, we haven't seen them feature for even a second. So does that mean that they're not included in the first game? I don't know, because Arteta hasn't ruled them out in his team news. I know we've discussed it, that the only one player that is left out is Chambers.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So um, otherwise, I agree. Guendouzi's. I've heard news that he's started impressing Arteta once again. I think we mentioned that in the last episode. He's yeah. He's coming along. So he's a player we've all admired. His attitude was something that Arteta picked on, which I feel Arteta had all the right to. He snuffed Maitland-Niles out. He snuffed even Ceballos. Ceballos returned to full training and never made it to the first team for quite a while. So I think that's a strong character in Arteta, and it's good to see Guendouzi coming back. So let's say if the strongest two of Torreira and Xhaka don't meet, or are not fit enough to play, I'd like to see a Guendouzi and a Maitland-Niles in there. That's a lot of energy. Those
Yeah,
two would work up and down for you all day long.
and it's something I think that Arteta definitely tested out in the friendlies, like he's mentioned, which was quite exciting to see that a young dynamic midfield. Mike, but let's quickly go to our back line. I think there's a big debate regarding the Tierney, Saka, Kolasinac uh, selection, and we also know that Saka is currently, on the last 12 months of his contract. Do you think that's going to influence his decision, or do you think he's just going to go based on form? What do you think? uh, Keeping in mind the contract situation.
Well, Bren, the first thing that I want to mention is that from the news that I've read is that Bukayo Saka's contract is of a very high priority to Arsenal to renew it. They regard him very highly, as do the fans, obviously. And yeah, so they're working, well, what I hear, they're working hard on to agreeing a deal. But what I'm hoping to see and what I expect to see is now that Kieran Tierney is back, he's had a few months back from injury now. Unfortunately, it was probably a few weeks after lockdown that he was back fully fit. So I think he's got had a lot of time to work with the team now and do his individual fitness sessions. And Arteta regards him very highly. So I hope and I expect to see him against City.
Well, I I also certainly do hope so, but that also leaves Saka on the bench. But I think for this game, Arteta is going to lean into experience. Like I mentioned before, I think we're going to see Aubameyang, Lacazette, Nelson combination up top. Dean, do you think that Leroy Sané might be making the way back against Arsenal, or do you think it's too soon because he's also now back in full training with the City team?
Yeah, look, it comes down again to how fit is the Oak, but that could be something to throw into Arsenal's. We were talking about technically and tactically, but there's a tactical change, changing personnel, changing a different way, because of course Arteta is going to break down each and every, maybe not to the full extent, but he's going to break down each and every position and the strengths and the players he expects to start there and what they would be doing and counteract that. So it's probably too early. I don't see him playing the first game. In my opinion, I see Sterling and Riyad Mahrez on the right hand side with Sergio Aguero up front.
Well, I mean, it's quite insane to think you have to sit someone like Sana out, but you've got backup like Mares, for instance, to take his place, or Sterling, depending on which flank they play. Just the depth of quality, it's scary. And I'm keeping in mind the new five subs rule, Mike. I'm just wondering, do you think Arsenal has what it takes to go the full 90 with them? Because they're probably going to bring these players on in the 60th, 70th minute, fresh legs, and run our defenders ragged.
Well, Bren, I think actually the 9 substitutions on the bench and 5 subs per game rule actually plays a little bit in favour to Arsenal because, like you said, I think Arteta would go with a bit more of an experienced squad for the starting 11. But we've got a lot of quality with our young players, which would be fresh legs during the whole 90 minutes, So when he has 5 subs to make during the whole of the second half, I think it plays into Arsenal's favour a bit. We can try, hopefully, just to snack a lead against City, and then he can get the young legs up to just defend, and run up and down the pitch the whole time.
Well, speaking about young legs, I feel that we've got a lot of quality and we need to hold on to them and we need to develop them. And if you look at the current situation, concentrating on the youth academy and the youth squad might be very important for teams going forward. But going back to the City game, Dean Arteta had a big. He emphasized the importance of Willock and Nketiah to his plans. Does that maybe give a bit of insight to what he's thinking in the short term, or is it just reassuring those two players in the long term?
Look, like you both mentioned, there's the new 5 sub rule, 9 on the bench. So, you know, we'll check back and we'll jump on the question now. Like Mike says, I do agree it does play into our favor, but as much as it plays into our favor, it plays into City. So
Yeah.
like Brendan said, they've got a very deep bench, and they've got more of an experienced bench than our youth. But I agree with Michael that youth of our bench will run these Oaks up and down, and that comes back to Brendan's question. With Willock and Nketiah, maybe it's not speaking in a sense of starting, but the impact that they can have when they come in. Because, with these players having it in mind that they can get subbed, they need to run their socks off if it's an instruction. So they run their socks off for 60 minutes, and then that means they've run the other players or the other oak in the position, tracking him and such just as much. And then comes on a new Nketiah or a Willock, and this kid starts running all of a sudden and, breaking away from you, gaining space from you. And this is when, of course, as you see in the end of the games, players get tired, Oaks gain space, and goals are scored. So this could be maybe what he's leaning towards, or that he's going to maybe look at starting these players that they're ready. But I do see a future for these two players.
Yeah, I think, like we mentioned throughout this show, that the future is bright if we can hold on to all the players. Mike, I want to switch to the right hand of the field, where we've got Bellerin most likely going to start for us as right back, but who's going to play ahead of him? I see a lot of debates going on for the Nelson Pepe
Hmm.
swap. So obviously, both players give you a different dimension. Even though I feel that Nelson has much more skills up his sleeve that he hasn't shown in the last few games, he's put his head down and worked hard. But which one do you think would benefit Arsenal in a game like City?
Yeah, well, Bren, they obviously both still young players. What Nelson's 2021 and Pepe himself's only 24. And they both have skill in abundance. Although Pepe does like to take on the players a bit more, Nelson likes to track back or he helps track back and defend a bit more. But I agree with you. Nelson does have a lot more up his sleeve than he's been showing this season. But I'm sure the more we get to see him, the more that side of his style will come out. Um, but in all of our previous conversations, like I agreed with you, I said I think we would see Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Nelson. Just because Arteta does seem to like Nelson and favour him a little bit, but after the last week, what I've seen in the news and the press conference, it seems like Arteta does regard Nketiah very highly as well, and also likes him a lot as well. So I'm going to change my answer of my front three. I think we'll see Pepe, Aubameyang, and Nketiah.
Well, that will be very interesting. especially going on. Nketiah is a very raw talent. Yes, he's got great finishing ability, but I feel he needs to get a bit more involved in the game. Um, he tends to fade out of the game and just get involved when it's goal box action. Dean, based on the last 2 days, the last few press conferences, we've seen a bit more training videos. Would you change your score prediction from the 2-1 City result that we had in the first podcast?
No, I would keep my scoreline the same. Maybe, it could be a higher scoreline. As we've spoken about, Arsenal doesn't have the surest of defenses, and City's defense hasn't played for long enough together. Talking about Laporte being out for most of the season and having, Fernandinho coming from midfield into defense. It hasn't been the most assured of defenses. So maybe the only thing that would change is um, the height of the score. So I'm going to go with a 3-2 to City.
Well, I'm going to keep my predictions the same. I think it's going to be quite a high scoring game, but I'm hoping for the best. I think it's going to be a high scoring draw. And I believe I said 2-2. I think I'm going to stick with that. Mike, any change in predictions?
Yes, I've changed my predictions again. Well, I firstly said I can definitely see a 2-1 City happening. But then the optimistic fan inside me said 2-1 to Arsenal. And now I'm going to say something that not only the both of you, but every Arsenal, City, and football fan will laugh at me for. But there's something inside me. I feel it. A good old fashioned 1-0 to the Arsenal.
Well, uh,
Well,
I,
yeah, you can see by my reaction.
yeah, I think that's quite optimistic on the best of days. I
Yeah.
personally feel if Arsenal sneak a win, it's going to be, like I said, a high scoring game. They might sneak a goal. But definitely, I don't see a 1-0 to the Arsenal, but you never know. I'm just having a look at the table. We're currently sitting on ninth with 40 points with a game in hand. If we win this, we'll go on level. We will level on points with Wolves and Sheffield, and our goal difference would be better. So we'd probably jump into sixth place. Would that put us back into contention with the Champions League spots if we do actually win this game?
That's
Um.
also, sorry, Mike, that's also depending on Sheffield because Sheffield also have a game in hand.
Oh, that's correct. They also have a game in hand. They're playing
Yes,
the game
and
beforehand.
we also need to keep in mind that United and Spurs are also playing this weekend. So one thing that no Arsenal fan ever wants to say, but we need Spurs to win this weekend so that the top five race would be a lot closer. Otherwise, United would start to pull away a bit.
I was also seeing Leicester. I don't know exactly how many points Leicester is there, Brendan. If we win out, let's put this all into hypothetical that Arsenal beat City.
Mm.
You know what it changes for us, and City's ban get upheld. Okay. So Leicester, I know, still has to play 4 of the top 6 in their last, in their remaining fixtures. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So Leicester, the games they've got left, they've got Watford, Brighton, Chelsea, Everton, Palace, Arsenal, Bournemouth, Sheffield United, Tottenham, and Man United. So yeah, they've got quite
So
a
there's
few.
4 of the top 6 there
Yeah,
because you've got Man United, Tottenham, Sheffield, and Arsenal.
yeah,
I'm including Sheffield because they
and
such good
Chelsea.
form. And Chelsea, sorry. So there, you've got 5 tough fixtures, and what's 5 points? I mean, five games, 15 points.
Yeah.
And what are we behind them at the moment?
So they're currently on 53. So we've 13 points behind them with the game in hand. So it might be 10 points.
Drop to
If
10 if we win.
yeah.
So I don't know if we should completely, because what's Chelsea there? Chelsea's 3 points ahead of Man United.
Chelsea's on 48, and they still got Man City. They've got Leicester. They've got Sheffield. They've got Liverpool to play, and they've got Wolves to play. So, but I mean, we've also got quite a
We've
tough
also got
ride in.
3. I think we got 3 or 4. Hey, just check.
Yeah.
Just check there.
We've got four. top six sides still have to play.
Yeah, we've
So
got.
you see, we've all got it. So at the end of the day, whoever comes out as the most consistent team is gonna make it,
Yeah.
and even possibly all the way up into top three.
Mm.
So I think we can, because Brendan, sorry, do correct me if I'm wrong. If we win our game, we'll be 5 points behind fourth place.
Yeah, if we win our game, we'll be 5 points by fourth
So
place.
these are all hypotheticals.
Yes.
Arsenal now need to win almost every, if not every game, till the end of the season to have a chance of breaking into top four.
Mm.
If City's ban get upheld, we've got an even better chance. But United were on good form before lockdown happened, and football. But so there's a lot of Oaks in contention here. As much as we don't like Tottenham and we won't speak highly of Tottenham, Heung-min Song is back in full training. Harry Kane is back in full training. I don't know if
Yes.
he's ready for a full game, but so
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of things that we can't predict. Obviously, this lockdown. If we look at Bayern Munich, I mean, look at the Bundesliga. The first few games definitely gave a key pointer to how the season was going to play out, because I think after the first three games, everyone saw the quality kick in from Bayern, and the other teams starting to fall off a bit. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see after the first three games. I want to touch on the final thing regarding the City game. Then we'll end section one. I think we just need to touch transfers, because there was so much said regarding our two key players in the press conferences. But I want both of you to maybe just give me a key battle on the field. So one of their players that we need to watch out for, and one of our players they need to watch out for. Dean, we'll start with you.
okay. On the City side, I think there's so many to choose from. The most obvious is probably Kevin De Bruyne or Sergio Aguero, or even just the combination between the two. Sergio Aguero. Sorry, Kevin De Bruyne feeding Sergio Aguero. Yeah. So we touched on it earlier. With having a midfield that can run. You know. So I think that's going to be the key battle. Who per se does it? If it's one person in particular, or if it's more of a team effort. I don't know, but I see the Sergio Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne link. Not to mention the two wingers, what link they have with both those players. So I think that's going to be the strongest of cities there. Definitely the De Bruyne and the Aguero link. On our side, clear danger man is Upamecano, as we've seen that his scoring record speaks for itself. How City is going to handle that is by depriving us of the ball, or depriving Upamecano of the ball. The less Upamecano has of the ball, there's nothing you can do without the ball. It's kind of obvious.
Yeah, so that's what gets a bit interesting with the Ozil inclusion in the team, because obviously Arteta would feel Ozil would be his best avenue to get to Oba, get the ball to Oba, get him in attacking positions. So that might be his thinking, in selecting the final 11. Mike, what's your predictions? Where are the key battles going to happen on the game tomorrow?
Yeah, well, Bren, like Dean said, the clear danger man would be Kevin De Bruyne, and that's what I'd go for. But another key battle might be whoever goes up against, who we assume would be Hector Bellerin. His defense has come into question over the past. He hasn't been back to full fitness for quite a while now. So yeah, I think that might be a quite interesting battle as well. And again, I agree with Dean. Aubameyang is our clear danger man, but I think I'll go a bit for an unexpected answer. If Mr. Nicolas Pepe starts, I think he would be our danger man in this game.
Okay, I'm going to go a bit left field. I think both of you are pretty accurate in your predictions. But I personally feel that the game can be won and lost depending on who City put in their CDM position, either Fernandinho or De Bruyne. The few breakdowns I've watched about City games, a lot of what happens, cycles through their CDM. So I think if we can pounce on the CDM, make sure that he doesn't distribute the ball quickly. We can cut off the supply lines to players like a, a De Bruyne, a Sane, a Sterling, Aguero. So I think it's going to be essential for our number 10, our CAM on the day, to be on the CDM's heels the whole day, so he doesn't have time to spread the ball.
Yeah, well, Bren, I agree with you with that, but like you said, Arteta would probably go for Ozil because he is regarded as our most creative avenue in the club. But if you need a number 10 that's going to be on the CDM's heels all the time, then it would probably be Ceballos or Willock starting, I guess.
Yeah. No, well,
No,
we,
I agree with both of you guys there. It needs the number 10 needs to work in this game, or we're gonna have big problems. You can't allow the guy back in that space there. You know, like you say, that holding midfielder over there just to spread balls. We can't. So and that's where I agree with Michael. Ceballos would be the guy to do that job for you. Whether Arteta goes for Ozil or Ceballos, yeah, I'd probably pick Ozil as well. Seeing him going for Ozil, trying to still make Ozil work because we stuck with him till his contract runs out.
for at least another year. So,
Yeah.
but I think we have seen a bit of an improvement in Ozil over the last, or under Arteta especially. He's been tracking back. He's been closing spaces. His positioning, just closing off passing lanes has been much better, I believe. So, it, yes, it might not be ideal, but I don't think we'll we won't see the usual Ozil. I think we'll see someone running around, really giving
Mm, mm.
his 110%.
Which he has been a bit more under Arteta.
Yes, yeah,
Well, his running stats under Arteta are actually quite scary.
Mm.
You must go look at those running stats. Some games he's run more than any other player. The fans, we don't look at this, and this is a big change under Arteta. And like you say, he's had the break now. He's had the chance to get fit, recoup his body. Rest and recovery. Load and recovery. The recovery is just as important as your load, especially for a player like Ozil. I don't see him being able to play 50, 60 games a season anymore. He's more of a 30, 40 game
Yeah.
a season player. And,
And,
the more you rotate him, the better the more you're going to get out of it. The fresher you've got Ozil, the more you're going to get out of him.
yeah, and the fans tend to give Ozil a lot of stick these days about he has not been creating as much assists as he used to. Um, for example, he's only had one assist under Arteta. But yes, I looked at the stats earlier in the week. He's created he's created plenty of goal scoring opportunities. I'll lie to you if I give you the numbers. But the creativity is there. We've just been having a problem with that final product these days.
Yes, yeah, sadly that's what we look at the end of the day is assists, not created chances. And created chances, what it is an assist without the other player putting it in the back of the net. There's no difference between that assist and the the chance created, except the player putting it in the back of the net. It's the exact same opportunity. So, yeah, those stats in that way can be misleading. Ozil can, like you say, I would not know it now, but let's spitball a bit here. But let's say he's created 30 chances in the last
I think it was
7 games.
25, but yeah, it was
So
25, 30. Sounds about right.
in how many games, if that's 3 to 5 chances, that's 3 to 5 possible assists a game, which is very high. So, 5 chances created is very high per game. If you've got that stat behind you, that's massive.
Yeah,
So I'm not
no.
sure exactly what it is.
Yeah, I read an article yesterday. I think it was 25. Correct me if I'm wrong, in the comment section, but that's to the best of my knowledge.
Now we
But
will we will start pulling up more of these stats and having
Yeah.
them.
yeah, yeah. So obviously, we don't really have a lot of equipment at the moment, so it's difficult to use something as recording and have something to pull up stats and stuff like that. So the better we, or the longer we're in the game, the more code we'll get, the better we'll get. Right. Anything else you guys want to touch on regarding the City game before we head over to section two?
No.
Well, yes, Bren. I'm not sure if you wanted to keep this for section two, but the the one question we had to touch on this episode was from Steph Garlett's about Philippe Coutinho and what do you think will happen regarding the situation of him coming to Arsenal.
Yeah, well, I think we need to touch on transfers, like I mentioned, but I think let's take a quick 5 minute break and discuss all the transfer news in section two. Which was the Man City preview. We're going to dive into transfer news. We just want to thank Stefan Karlitz for his question. He asked specifically about the Coutinho situation. Mike, do you have the question in front of you?
Yeah, well, he just basically asked me to bring up the whole Coutinho situation and what our opinions is about his whole transfer situation and what the likelihood would be of him coming to Arsenal.
Well, I think personally, while we've got someone like Ozil on the books, we won't sign Coutinho. Even though he might be a few years younger, I don't think there's space in the books for Coutinho. But it would be an exciting prospect. Hopefully, I think he's found it difficult adapting to the different leagues. So if he comes back to the Premier League, he might recapture that form we saw with Liverpool.
Yeah, well, if he could recreate his form that he had with Liverpool, he would obviously be the dream signing. But I completely agree with you, Bren. I don't see any chance of him coming to Arsenal. He would be out of our price range, even though I saw reports that Barcelona are willing to pay part of his wages just to get him off of their books, you know. But yeah, I still think it would be out of our price range, but I definitely think that he would move over the summer.
Okay, Dean, do you think this transfer is likely to happen? And let's talk hypothetical. How would he transform the team if he would come to Arsenal?
Well, we could touch on first how we would transform the team, hypothetically, if the deal would be able to happen. Um, sure. I do see him very much in the Ozil role. I do agree with you very much in the Ozil role. I don't see him as a hard worker, tireless tracking down. He's a very attacking minded player. Played him on the wing most of the times, or a lot of the times to accommodate other players into the team. So I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't actually see much of an improvement in the team if he comes in. It would just, yeah, it would just overload us in positions that we are already overloaded in.
Even if
And I
he
think,
even if he recaptures the form like he had with the final season with Liverpool.
there's no question that he was, or he is still a great player. But I don't know if these kind of players are starting to fade out of the game. If it's, um, these players need more of an edge to them, and the edge I'm talking about is more of a defensive edge. And you know, I don't even see him getting into Pep Guardiola's team today. Under even if he was still playing in the same form before he left. I don't know if you agree with me there or not, but I don't see him. Where do you see him fitting into Klopp's formation or Klopp's pressing style of game?
Um, Personally, I also don't think he'll be on the starting. Who currently they've got a more dynamic midfield currently, right? If I'm correct, in the midfield
Yeah, you see,
they've
they
got like
don't.
a Wijnaldum, Henderson, and
Yeah, you see that
Ox.
the type of midfield that Pep Guardiola plays or Arteta wants to start playing. So I don't see Arteta going to buy a player that he's probably not going to play.
Yeah, that's true. Um,
I don't see him spending, even if it's just on wages, let alone he is going to cost us 10, 20 million just to loan him for the entire season, let alone what his wages are going to cost. Yeah, I know they're bringing these, the number keeps dropping every week, but I think we need to strengthen in different areas and start focusing on the style of play we want. And I don't see him being the style of player
Well,
that we're looking for.
I fully agree with you that the Coutinho situation, I don't think it's a place in the team we need to look at, especially with the youngsters coming through. But you did mention, there are other teams of the other parts of the team that we need to look at strengthening, and we've been heavily linked with Upamecano in the recent weeks. And if you look at the reports, it's almost as if he's already signed the deal. It's been such strong links with us. But I feel that we've got too many defenders in the team in the first place. Mike, how would we fit him into the team? Because I feel players like Socrates would be too difficult to offload with the current wage bill and the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic that happened.
Yeah, well, Bren, obviously, I think Upamecano would be a great signing for us. Um, and but I don't think it would happen. But I disagree with you with like the Socrates situation. He has come out and said that he would not wait on a club if he feels that he's not an important player of the team, that he'll move on, and I think that would be in the best interest of both player and club. And other areas like Chambers, he is almost back to full fitness, but it's actually still going to be quite a while after such a long time sitting on the sidelines. Louise, I think he should probably sign a year extension, but I think he'll probably be played a lot less, just be a mentor to all the other defenders because he has a lot to teach them. Mavropanos would probably go out on loan or be sold. And so, yeah, we do have a lot of injury problems with our defenders as well. So I think he would be a welcome signing, and we keep Louise, Mustafi, Upamecano, Saliba, Mari as well, and then Holding and Chambers. I think that would be great for our defense going forward.
I think there were six defenders. I think that's already a bit heavy, seeing that
Yeah, I
we've
think actually
already
I named seven. Yeah.
Yeah, it
we've
was
we've
7.
already had to ask players to cut wages. I think having seven defenders in the squad might be stretching it, especially with a big money signing like Upamecano coming in. And then we've been talking a lot about youngsters coming through, and I know Chambers might not be that young anymore, but having a player like Upamecano coming in would definitely strengthen our team, no doubt about it. I'm not arguing that point, but it's also going to might block the avenue into the team for players like Holding that we know has a lot of potential, and Chambers that's shown a lot of improvement this season and last season.
Yeah, so look, for me, I fully agree. Defense, funny enough, it is probably the position we most overloaded at the moment, but it's not. It's the weakest position in the squad, and has been for probably 10, 15 years since the likes of Sol Campbell and Torre and all of them left. But yeah, there's no doubt. For me, I think we talking now. It's different times now because of COVID, and you know, I would want us to do everything we can to sign this player. And what we would need to do then is, I think, ship off a lot of players. I agree with Michael over there that Socrates should get shipped off. I, I'm sure he should be willing. You know, he would want to start. I think all of these players are willing or wanting to start play first team football every weekend. So getting these players, I think that needs to be our priority. Is getting rid of these players and just bringing in one defender, but bringing in Upamecano and Socrates out. I think Mavropanos, yes, there was a couple of good games. Or Arsenal fans are so hopeful for the next defender that maybe we just jumped on the Mavropanos bandwagon too early. So I think he's out. Yeah, I think Chambers has had his chance to prove his time. He's still young. He still can prove, but yeah, I think the Upamecano and Saliba, the idea of that and their age and their prime, or what we believe we can make those players. I don't see Chambers nor Holding getting to that level. I think they've passed that ability. Although not to say players can't get better at their age in the game. So yeah, to me, I would just next season. Ideally, I would like to be left with David Luiz, who would of course lead the line. Um, then you've got Saliba and Upamecano. Pablo Mori, I don't know if yeah, he's good, but he hasn't had time to prove himself as well, or had time to prove to us that he's going to be consistent. So to me, that's just as much of a gamble as yeah, trying to keep a Socrates or so, because you never know. So yeah, I'm thinking more David Luiz, Upamecano, Saliba, um, Holding, and Chambers. You keep those five defenders, you've got a future.
Yeah, well, there's also an argument that you can keep Chambers in the squad and use him as a backup CDM, where he did so well in his season under Fulham, or in Fulham, and he is quite versatile. So if you've got an injury problem, we can put him in a right back.
Yeah.
So there's other ways of using the squad, other than just counting the centre backs that we haven't taken into account yet. But on that, we've also been heavily linked with Partey, and it also seems like something that's not going away that might happen, even though we know what the financial situation is with the club currently. Uh, do you think it's something that would improve the squad, Dean? And I also think we probably would need to ship out a defensive minded midfielder. Which one would you ship out in place for Partey?
Yeah, look, like you say, this chance for speculation is just not going away. So there must be some truth behind all of this. Yeah, to me, it would probably have to be Shaka leaving for Potter. Shaka, they're roughly the same age, probably roughly the same mold. Not saying they're the same player or anything like that, but yeah, because we could probably still get 30 million, at least 20 million even in this market for Shaka. So yeah, if there's any truth to it, I do believe that Shaka is the one that needs to make way. The rest of the players, yeah, there's the youth. You can't justify. You're not going to get 20 or 30 million for a youth player in this market. So
Well, Mike, um, I, I, th- I think I think we all would agree that we would like Shaka to move on if we had to make the change. But there's also a lot of argument against that, meaning like it seems like Arteta has taken quite a liking to Shaka and is an integral part of his team. We don't know if it's out of necessity, because it's the only player that he has available to him, or if he really does like the player.
Yeah, well, Bren, I've seen reports that Arteta was actually scouting Zaka for City while he was at Arsenal. So Arteta does seem to like Zaka very much, and I don't see Zaka moving on at all. There's been a lot of reports linking Torreira to Milan, or back to Italy. A lot of clubs back in Italy. I do not. I don't hope we sell Torreira. I think if parties should come to Arsenal, I think Ceballos would probably go back to Madrid. He won't get another loan, or we won't buy him. And I think we might look to send Willock out on loan to get regular first in football.
Yeah, well, I think Arteta has shown his willingness to keep young players in the squad. If you look at the Nketiah situation, and want to develop them in house, but depending on the squad size, that might be a possibility. So I want to close off this transfer section, and I want to open up the floor to anyone, any willing takers regarding the Aubameyang and Saka situations, especially because Arteta was so adamant in his press conference that these are very big priorities and it's something that he feels quite confident of getting over the line.
Bren, I'd like to start off this one. Well, I don't think anyone can really argue that Arsenal would like to keep both Aubameyang and Saka. And I also don't see Saka wanting to move on to another club if Arsenal give him a decent contract offer. We've given him a lot of minutes this season and he's only going to grow into the squad more. And I know he's played at left back a lot this season, but I think going forward he's going to be played at the left wing position a lot more. So I definitely think agreement between Arsenal and Saka will be agreed. As with Aubameyang, it's a bit more difficult because he is getting a bit old now. But and he's obviously looking for trophies, because he's a top player. Um, Definitely Arsenal would want to keep him. Hopefully, I've heard that they want to sell Maitland. They might want to sell Maitland-Niles to fund the contract for Aubameyang. So yeah, he said it's a very well. I've read reports of him saying that it's a very big decision and he hasn't made it yet, but the ball's still in Arsenal's court and they still have to make the offer.
Dean, on that, we've seen Aubameyang come out and actually saying that Arsenal have the keys to unlock this transfer speculation or get this deal over the line. What do you think? I know it's only speculation, but if you had to take your best guess, what do you think he's talking about? Is the club ambition? Is it signing players? Is it what do you think is the key that would get Aubameyang over the line?
Look, you know, what he's mentioning as the key might not be even possible. As you say, the key could be money wise. Maybe he wants a massive contract, or of course, more investment in the team, more ambition and such in the team. So, you know, him saying that the ball lies in our court is not necessarily fair, because you can say that, I want, let's say, 300 or 350,000 a week. We can't afford that. Or he wants more ambition in the transfer market. We don't have the transfer funds. So I don't know, like you said, we don't know what he means by Arsenal have the key to signing this contract. So yeah, it might not even be possible what he's saying is the key. I think for every team, if they could just blow money at their best player, it would be easy to keep every player.
Yeah, well, that's a fair assessment. Um, all right, is there anything else transfer-wise you guys would like to close the door on? We'll close the conversation on.
Um,
Yeah,
Michael?
yeah. Well, Bren, I just actually wanted to ask you. Um, we've been talking about things that might happen in the transfer market. I wanted to ask yourself and Dean, where are the positions that you feel we need to strengthen, and who you might think we need to get in those positions, except now for Upamecano and Partey, because that's two clear options.
Well, personally, I think if it was possible, but this is just purely hope, and I don't think it's going to happen in the slightest. I think we need an upgrade in the CAM role. We need a more dynamic CAM, and I would love to see someone like Madison. Even someone like a Jack Grealish, not my first choice, but he's a bit more dynamic. He's got the defensive running, he's got skill on the ball. So I think a transfer like that would be ideal for Arsenal and would
Hmm.
really transform the team. On top of a Partey and a Upamecano, of course.
Hmm.
Bren, don't you think maybe for next season that Emmy Smith Rowe could gain a lot from playing under Ozil and maybe becoming that player instead of going out to buy him?
Yes, but I mean, I think you asked me specifically on what can
Okay.
transform the team next season. And there's also, as much as I would love to rely on youth, I don't think we should overemphasize the youth in our squad. It's just not possible to introduce five, six, seven youth players at the same time, I believe.
Yeah, no, Brendan, it's just if we could get any of those players, Madison or Grealish, I think those two players will improve even a City or Liverpool side. If I'm being honest, I think Madison's got a lot ahead of him. Jack Grealish, I've admired Jack Grealish for many years now. I think Jack Grealish is a quality player. Technique wise, you can see he's the leader at Aston Villa. Yeah, honestly, I really rate both of those players highly, especially Jack Grealish. But yeah, for me, to improve our squad, you know, it's difficult to say because we are becoming a more of a balanced squad. We have options in the striking department. There's no questions there that we don't need upgrading there. Even if we do lose a player, we've got backup. Wings, we are stocked now. We've got talent coming through. We've just broke our record with Pepe, so there's attacking midfield. Like I said, I don't know if that's going to be Arteta's style of play going forward. If he's going to have that kind of play in his team, we'll see. That's still debate. That's still to be seen. So, but yeah, if he is going to, that's definitely one of the positions. I agree with Michael that Emery can come into there, but if it had to be a position now that you would want to strengthen, besides the defense, and yeah, I would probably go with an attacking midfielder as well. And yeah, who we could afford thereafter if we're speaking hypothetically, because I think James Madison's going to cost 50 to 80 million even in this market. 80 million even in this market. So whether we can afford to upgrade that position is another question. So
Yeah, look, I also just talked like very hypothetically and what
yeah, it
what I would
was. Yeah,
like, but I mean, we all can dream, can't we?
we
So
can play FIFA, but
that's probably the closest we'll get to completing the squad we just talked about. All right, anything else that was left unsaid?
No.
I think we've
no.
covered a lot. I think it was a very good discussion again. I think we've covered a lot of points in a short amount of time. And I just want to thank everyone again for watching. I think we really enjoy putting the content out there. We really hope you guys are entertained while watching the content. And please remember to go and follow us on at Arsenal Fan Theory on Instagram and at Theory Arsenal on Twitter. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.